We do pretty much everything in-house except our mechanical work, meaning gas and electric. We set our own pools, dig and set our own pools, plumb our own pools, do all our hardscape work, most of our structures, lighting, irrigation, all that good stuff. So there's two schools of thought to it, but we kind of morphed into the side of like we can control quality and we can control schedule a lot better with it being in-house.
Yeah, it's not like there's one model that always works better than the other. It does depend on what kind of relationships do you have with subs in your market and how reliable are they, or like how much access do you have to good solid people, to your point, where you can control quality and schedule a lot better. And so there isn't like a one size fits all answer. Welcome back to another episode of the Cost of Doing Business podcast show. We're here in Nashville at the venue where the Hardscaper Showcase is kicking off for the season. 26 event road tour, and this kind of signifies kicking off travel season for us at SynkedUP. And we're in front of the SynkedUP booth here with Seth Wharton from Get Mowtivated in the local Nashville market. And our first time spent together was on the project that you were doing. When we were filming, when you were doing the project, Tekka was filming for the educational content that's getting shown on the big stage tomorrow. So we're in the presence of movie stars.
Yeah, something like that. We'll see. People may think differently after they see it, but no, it'll be good.
So anyway, give me a little intro of what your business looks like today.
Sure. We there's, depending on the season, there's 14, 15 of us. We have two like distinct divisions. We have a maintenance division, which is kind of how we got our start. So we've morphed that into, we've been very selective with the maintenance clientele we take on, and a lot of times we're maintaining the projects we've done, which is actually enjoyable and helps to continue to build that relationship with clients and just solidify it. And you're protecting their investment. They trust the guys. There's some value add there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we have a design build side. I say degree, it's from a state school, but I have a degree in landscape design. And so that's where a lot of my background is. Sometimes we'll outsource design and rendering and that kind of stuff just because I'm wearing a lot of hats. That's part of a plug for SynkedUP, right? It helps us stay on top of stuff and get quotes out faster and all that. But so the design build side, we do pretty much everything in-house except our mechanical work, meaning gas and electric. We set our own pools, dig and set our own pools, plumb our own pools, do all our hardscape work, most of our structures, lighting, irrigation, all that good stuff. So there's two schools of thought to it, but we kind of morphed into the side of like we can control quality and we can control schedule a lot better with it being in-house.
Yeah. There's definitely, it's not like there's one model that that always works better than the other. It does depend on, what kind of relationships do you have with subs in your market, and how reliable are they, or like how accessible do you have, how much access do you have to good solid people, to your point, where you can control quality and schedule a lot better. And so there isn't like a one size fits all answer. It does come down to, I'd rather deal with being able to, I'd rather have the advantage of being able to control my own schedule and deal with the challenges of maintaining and retaining employees, as opposed to dealing with the unpredictability and it's out of my control on schedule, but have the pro, I guess you would call it, of not having to deal with subcontractors through the winter months when,
Yeah, I mean, we, for the longest time in like 19, 20, your labor gets better, at least for us, like the quality of person that you hire. When we first started, I just needed a warm body that could help run a weed eater or whatever, or dig a hole, and now it's like, you met Ernesto, right?
Yep.
Ernesto can set grades. I kind of walk it through with him. I was telling somebody tonight, we're on a big driveway project, and I haven't set a single grade. Like, we talked about it, and
that's a proud moment.
Yeah, it's great.
That's
and come
pretty
back.
awesome.
I've checked them, and make sure everything's right. But it's just like, man, and there's a bunch of curves and pitch, and we got drainage coming off hills and stuff. And so there's something to be said about the quality of labor, but I think it's interesting to see how, when we really the company really started growing, we went through a point where I sought after so hard the guys that I have now, right? The capabilities of the guys we have now, the friendships with the guys we have now, right? Like these are long-term employees, at least I think. You know, they've been with us for a while. We take really good care of them, whatever. And I think there's a point where it's like that concept is why we want to go so in-house, is because I don't ever want to risk anything that would lose them. And so if you're subbing everything, right, one day those subs may not show up for you. Okay, well, if you've been subbing everything, now you don't have these guys to help you.
Yeah.
So it's a swirling pot of a catch-22, and we use some subs if we absolutely have to, just for like, hey, we're done, we need to move our crew. Our crew can go crush hardscapes, and I can get a guy in here to run irrigation. But I don't know, man. It's just a unique.
I mean, it comes back to, you know, leverage your strengths.
Yep.
You know, and I mean that both you individually as the owner, as well as you collectively as your team and company, and the skills that you have on your team. So leverage your strengths.
Yep.
And like to your point, like when you know that you can pull your guys off the job and go make higher revenue per man hour work over here and bring a contractor in to finish irrigation.
Yep.
It's a no-brainer.
Yep.
You know, but again, not everybody has this. You know, it really does come down to what, you know, make sure the shoe fits, like what fits best for your situation.
Yeah, I've got friends that are straight. I mean, honestly, they have like maybe 2 or 3 guys, and then 90% of what they do is subs.
Yeah.
And it's like, God, there's something that's like, oh, that would be so amazing. But at the same time, you see certain like
it just puts
elements.
a buffer between the adult babysitting.
Yeah, it's like I would love to like if that would have been done different, or you know. Anyway, so
no, there's definitely rewards in having the culture and the team aspect for sure.
Yep.
I know I got to be a full-blown recipient of that at Tucson Landscaping, and it's still one of the highlights of my career in this industry. So moving on to, I want to get a picture of what your typical bread and butter job looks like. Like, what is your ideal? You're super efficient at them, good at selling them.
Probably like the $150,000 to $250,000 complete backyard. You know, typical suburban neighborhood backyard. We come in, drop a pool in, probably a little bit of a retaining wall around the front side, you know, some creative, cool walkways or steppers or paths, fire pit, and, you know, I don't know, some screens and plantings and lighting and whatever. Like I don't know why, we're just really efficient at doing everything as one rather than
turnkey.
like, hey, let's put a pool in and pavers, and then you just always end up having to come back.
So kind of what we're going to see on the big screen tomorrow, right?
100%. Yeah, that project is 3 times the scale of kind of what I'm talking about.
Okay.
But, you know, that one's got the structure and
it's
whatever.
got the kitchen. Yeah, it's got all the bells and whistles.
And what have you. But yeah, that's like turnkey for us. We can do those in like 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay.
Depending on some are faster. Just depends on like how much hardscape and inspections.
What size crew do you like to run on a project like that?
We typically run 2 3 to 4 man crews, just depending on what it is.
Yep.
And so I kind of stagger them. I'll bring, and then we have a pool crew, right? So the pool crew will come in, drop dig set the pool, plumb it, get it backfilled. And we do that too because there's so many inspections, at least in our municipalities, where it's like it's going to probably sit for a couple days, maybe even.
And you want to be off,
right? So we can go be doing something else.
So you're almost staggering your jobs.
Yeah, especially peak summer, and people know they're happy that like something's happening and there's a pool in their yard. And then once a hardscape crew gets done, we'll kind of move them over. We've got a rigged up job trailers. You've seen those, and so we drop that. We have a project manager for each of them. Sometimes he's managing both crews, but we'll drop a hardscape trailer for the guys. The guys show up on site and they get to work, have the plan and whatever. And then as they're finishing, sometimes both of those crews will be on the same site and overlap, and they're one starting softscape, or you know, if there's like an intricate wall detail, somebody's working on that, and the rest of the guys are bulking out pavers. It just depends. I mean, most of our jobs are within a 12 to 15 minute radius of our shop.
No, I remember you talking about this.
Yeah, we love it that way. Well, the
yeah.
showcase job was like 35 minutes away, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so far out here, you know. But it's really easy to just like shuffle guys around, you know, when we need to. Or hey, we're at a standstill here today. After lunch, let's head over here and kind of crush that.
So what does your day-to-day life look like? Like 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 7 a.m.? Like what times it start? What's your typical day look like during the season?
Day-to-day for me is wake up, hop in the truck, and then I am on site every day. So I'm either going to meet with the guys in the morning and put out fires of questions, concerns, whatever. If they're missing a material, I may go get that. I have one other project manager who kind of does that stuff too. So once everybody's rolling for the day and I know stuff's good and got everybody, in their specific situations, then I'm doing office work in the truck, SynkedUP, billing some stuff out, client meetings. But I spend a lot of time on site. I probably should spend less time on site, but that's the way I'm wired. I love it.
It's kind of where you like to be.
Yep. And because if something goes wrong, not that it does all the time, but it does happen, I'm right there and I can catch it.
Not get that lost production.
Yeah, if I'm in the office at the house, we actually just bought a shop space, so hopefully we'll have an office built out there soon. But if I'm at the house, I'm lazier, I'm working, but it's like, oh, the dog needs out or whatever. You don't move as quick.
Yeah.
But if I'm in the truck, it's almost there's this accountability side of like the guys are working and I'm working.
You can't be
like
slacking,
if I don't keep them fed, right? Like what's going to happen? So it's like I gotta stay on it. So that's kind of day to day for me. Lots of running around. I would say within the past year, it's gotten to a point where I can not be as just go. I can take a second. I'm not playing golf every day or anything, but
And
leave the house at 8.
What do you think? I want to dig into that a little bit. What do you think has shifted or changed over the last year that has done that?
Skilled labor.
Yeah.
To where,
Well, you didn't have to be there.
It took us probably a year. 2 of my main guys have been with me since 2020, right? So they're going on year 4. And it took me up until about a year and a half ago where they can really handle a project. They can set grades. They can run skid steer. They've always been able to run skid steers, but efficiently in the way I want, right? They can answer client questions if they're there, or at least most of the time a client's going to call me anyway. But they can put out fires if an inspector shows up and has a question or whatever. And so it was just I know once we have our plan, we're very detailed with our plans, dimensions, elevations, the whole shebang. Once they're starting to work a plan, and I'm usually way more on site on the front end of a project as we're coming out of the ground than I am on the back side.
Sure.
But once they're rolling.
Setting the course,
Yep, we're good. Base course is in, I'm out.
Yeah.
They can do it. Once the pool shell is set level, the guys can plumb it, and backfill it, and but it's stuff like that if you're not paying attention and you don't get all 4 corners in the middle of that shell perfectly level, you're
that's a bad
screwed.
deal.
Yeah,
exactly.
So we try to be very diligent on those portions of stuff. Being able to take pictures, add them to, your job folder is nice. Clients will call, hey, did we put a sleeve here or do this, whatever, and you can go grab it and send it even if I wasn't there. So stuff
That's
like that's
awesome.
really helped, get us to a point where we can, I can lay off a little bit more. And I took a vacation this year. It was the first time ever where I would talk to the guys, my main guy, once a day. But I wasn't on the phone every day freaking out. I was able to actually go enjoy it, and that was a big win for me.
That's awesome.
Because I've never been able to do it.
And how many years has it been since you started?
I've been doing it since I was 15, but this stuff 2014.
So you're 10 years this year. So there you go, 10 years in, and now you can take a vacation.
And I think, I just kind of morphed into this, right? I didn't show up and be like, all right, today, here's my business plan, and we're going to go do hardscapes. It's ever evolved so much, and I think I hold so much of it to heart, instead of holding it out here. And so if something happens, it's I'm taking the brunt of it instead of it just, passing by.
Growing and starting a business is, it's like your baby.
Yeah, 100%. And, you feel if something goes wrong, it's a direct reflection of me.
Exactly,
and I love that. So, that's taken some time for sure. But our first year, I was cutting grass all day, setting 2 or 3 client meetings a week, going home, drafting it in Dynescape, sending it, trying to sell it, and then schedule it on the one off day we weren't cutting grass, And if I could do it all over again, I'd go intern for a company and be like, all right, how are they building high-end design build? But again, in 2014, I didn't know that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah,
I just like running skid steers and.
Which kind of highlights the fact that having a vision is really helpful to accelerate the journey, or knowing what you're.
Yeah, I think if I did, obviously hindsight's 20/20, but if I did it all over again, I think from 0 in 3 years' time, we could be in the same place we're in now.
Because you know where you're trying to get to. Exactly, which is.
But I wouldn't trade it for the world. I think people. I may get in trouble for this, but there are a lot of people who are big on the Instagram follower world, right? And like, hey, this, I'm driving my G-Wagon to meetings or what, my Corvette, which is cool. Like, yeah, have those things. But I have a loaded GMC truck and I love it, right? Have those things. It's great. It's worth it. But at the same time, like, grow slow, grow intentionally. Don't spend. It's simple principles, right? But like, don't spend more than you make. Don't
exactly.
I didn't take a salary from the business until probably 4 or 5 years ago. And even then, it was, I had guys that make more than me. I still have guys that get close with overtime and stuff. Obviously, we can take draws, but the more you keep in the company, the more you're able to do it. Like, we self-funded the whole thing, so it takes.
The one comment I have on that topic is I get where you're coming from. Like, meaning, as the owner, you're kind of the one to take the brunt.
Yep.
It should be that way.
Yep.
You should insulate your guys. So when your cash is tight or whatever, like, you're the one that feels the pain. But the one thing I want to say about that is, it starts with making sure you're charging appropriately. And you know this, I'm preaching to the choir, but I just want to say it for the sake of our listeners, like, make sure that you're pricing your jobs to not only allow the business to earn a profit, but also pay you a market wage.
Yep.
And both, not one or the other, both. Both pay you a market wage, and the business makes a profit after it's paid you that market wage. Because business is a slog in being 5% lower in price because you're not paying yourself isn't really going to be what's making you win or not in business. It's other things like client experience, reliability, doing what you said you're going to do, be professional, all those things. So.
Well, I literally yesterday, we just did a bunch of snow work the past 2 days, right?
Yeah.
And so I've, brakes in the truck. I read your blog post about it. How, yes, pay yourself a salary, and then also, the prop, you should be getting both. So like I think you had 100K was like your reference, and we were set up that way, but I never took the extra unless we had to have it. My wife had a full-time job that paid pretty well and full benefits and stuff, so we just, kind of kept capital in. But I've, every year we end up taking draws, but it's something to be said too about, if you get that actual profit, now you can do what you want with it. And also, if you're going to buy a machine, when you do your budgeting worksheets, plan for that and put it in there.
Exactly. Budget for the business you want to be tomorrow.
Yeah, 100%.
Dream,
and that's when we redid our budget this summer. I put a couple things in there, and our pricing's a little higher right now. Like, I upped my salary when we redid our budget. I just physically upped it like this month, so that was when the first change. Yeah, it was the first change that happened, but we've been billing for it since July, which I like. It gave us a minute.
Buffer.
But we have bids that I know come in a little higher, but I really feel like the problem or the issue there is the guys that we're competing against, which we haven't really had a ton of competition until the past 5-6 months when the economy started shifting, right? Because people see our work, word of mouth. Like I said, we work within 15 minutes of our shop. They know they want us to do their project. A lot of times, when we get to that point with somebody, and so it's a weird concept to be like, oh yeah, somebody's, we're competing against somebody, because it just isn't normal for us. And so I lost a project this week. We were like $8,000 higher at a 20% margin, right? And it was simple. It was just a pull in concrete, but still we were $8,000 higher. And I knew it going into it, but I was like, I'm not going to cut myself short. For me to get to $8,000 for you puts me at a 10% net. And that's a lot of effort to make 10%. And so I was like, no, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, 10% is the bare minimum. You don't want to go below that. Single digits is, you're riding, you got both feet on a banana peel.
Yeah. And that's what I think's tough to get used to when you go from, we used another, not to be mentioned, job costing software in the landscape industry before SynkedUP. And when we redid our budget coming to SynkedUP and you go to the analysis and you see that net margin number, you're like, oh, or gross margin, sorry, it's like, oh, this is so much. On a $100,000 project, it's $40,000 net or whatever. Okay, well, yeah, but if you're not taking out the overhead to get to your gross number,
it vanishes quickly.
I think you can fool yourself into thinking like, oh yeah, no, that gross is still like, that can't be right. There's fluff in that, and it's not true. Like if you have our net, I think set at 20, and when we win it, it's great. And then when we lose it, we lose, and not,
it's
off our back.
As long as you can keep your pipeline full, the job's at 20%. Why would you change? Because why would you work just as hard for half the profit?
Yeah.
You might be, so it comes down to, as long as you can keep your pipeline full, meaning build your budget, and as long as the market is rewarding you with sold jobs that keep your pipeline full and keep your guys busy at the net that you want to be at, I mean, why work hard? Why work just as hard for half the profit?
Well, when we started talking to about, like, there may be specific job instances, if it's a $600,000 job, I would probably be more comfortable with like 15 to 18%.
Sure.
Right. If you need to give and take there, like we sub our auto covers. Okay.
Sure.
We make a decent amount off those. I would lose a little bit of money off that or take that down because I don't touch it. I make a call, the guy comes and installs it. Right.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, that's perfect.
Yeah, so the risk for you is super low.
So still that helps us put a couple grand towards the bottom line of a project and try and win it. So I don't know. This year will be interesting to see how stuff shakes out.
Yeah, it will be.
It was latter part of last year, stuff was getting kind of tight, and then like as far as bids and getting people to sign stuff, which is always that way. But first week of January, I mean, we were quoting outdoor kitchens and
that's
outdoor
impressive
living stuff, and it was
awesome.
selling. So not showstopper 3-month-long projects, but definitely work to keep you
keeps the
out
pipeline
in the spring.
full. Yep. Yeah. What is the biggest challenge you've ever overcome in your story?
Honestly, I think it's the labor side. Like
really?
I fought. My wife and I talk about it all the time. That the first like employee I got, I'm pretty sure was on meth. Smoked like a freight train, which is fine, again, whatever. But he just was. Looking back on it, like he was useless. He would, again, we were doing a ton of grass cutting. The name of the game's volume production. And I would spin circles around him, and I was paying him more than he should have made. And he was flaky and wouldn't show up and wanted to stop at the gas station every 10 seconds to get snacks. And, just such a headache. And then so we moved on from him to another guy who had a valid driver's license. That's a plus, right? So he could drive a truck, and, he was with us for a couple years and kind of, okay, this is cool, and then it just kept evolving. But there was like 2018, 2019, right when we started to really grow, like, you're making big leaps, right? I was struggling with finding labor, and I'm like, I'm doing it myself. I finally told my wife, I'm just going to go do it myself and have some friends that can help me on the weekend. And luckily I found one of my guys, and he was like, hey, my brother-in-law's looking for a job, and it just kind of morphed. And, the past 3 years, we've really been able to get labor.
You got your good help in 2020.
I wouldn't say it's solved. You still run into issues.
It's never.
It's solved, but it's definitely a plus and a benefit to have good guys.
Was there anything you did differently to get those good guys that you have today, or do you think it was just the luck of the draw, like enough of cycles? I
think I finally got so fed up with the cycles of it, the cyclicalness of it, and just started shaking the trees. What I mean by that is, like, I spent all day 24/7, like a sales guy for our company, like, hey, I called every vendor we had, and then if I would get a lead, I'd say, hey man, my name's Seth, get motivated, here's what we do, I'm gonna take care of you, I'm looking for somebody. And I did that for about 3 weeks, and finally I called a guy, hilarious turn of events. I called him, and he said, no, I don't need anything. He was like, I had a vendor who said, hey, I got a guy, he wants to sell his company, he's got 3 guys, and he wants to just go work for somebody full time and have a salary. And I was like, that's what I need. I called him, he goes, no, I'm gonna keep doing my own thing, but call my brother. He called his brother, and he was like, yeah, I was working for another landscape company, didn't really like it, wasn't a fit, and I'm kind of, ready to do something else. The reason it wasn't a fit was it was like a big corporate, massive multinational account type place. And so I was like, okay. And so he came on board, and ever since then we've been rolling. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. But it took, again, I think it was the desperation of it that finally was like, I'm just going to keep going.
You're out there hustling and grinding just as badly for the employees as you are for your customers.
Right. I would ask guys at restaurants, like, hey, you looking for, here's what we do, you looking for any work? And
that's awesome.
It, finally kind of worked out. And I think, too, there's something to be said about building relationships with your vendors.
Yeah, absolutely.
And not going, swapping vendors every 3 seconds because somebody's 3 cents cheaper on something. We've been with Ewing Irrigation primarily since we started, and those guys, at least in our market, will drop anything for us and get us stuff as quick as they can. And that's been a big key player. And not only that, but our business moving forward, and especially as jobs get bigger, we're taking drop shipments of Teco products, right? That's a logistical nightmare on our end. Like, I don't know how to set all that up, and they take care of it, and if something's wrong, they get it pretty quick. So that's been a good add too.
What's a piece of advice? What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Oh man, geez, that could go a bunch of different ways. I'd say grow at a pace you're comfortable with. I think there's something to be said about being comfortable, not in like stagnation, but comfortable as in like, I can handle this. Push yourself. Everybody kind of has to find their own limit, but for us, it's like, I know when the wheels start falling off, and we need to like rein it in until we get a better footing, and then kind of keep growing. And that took a while to learn, because I just used to say yes to everything. I kind of like stepped back into that with snow. I'm like, yeah, we'll do it. Send me an address. hit as many of them as we can while it's here. But yeah, just realizing that like you start making a little money, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna go buy this, do this, change this. Go on vacation, all this stuff. Like, go slow, live below your means, and it'll work.
Yep. If you could go back to your first, I'll go back not to your first year of business with mowing grass and all of that, but like to your first, where you're like, this is my thing. Like, I'm going to grow a business out of this. To your first summer, when that became your commitment or your realization, what would you do different?
I think I would probably look at it as like, this is a long-term career instead of just, this is what I'm doing right now. I think I never set out to be an entrepreneur or whatever. I was just trying to make money, right? And so once I finally realized, probably in like 2014, 2015, that like, this is what we're going to do, I started like, putting forth more effort in like, okay, this is it. Like, I'm selling myself, and I'm going to continue to sell myself. And I would just, if I could go back, I don't know, man. I don't think I have a good answer for that, but probably be more diligent in business planning is a good one. We talked about that already, but that could be more beneficial.
A little more proactive instead of reactive?
Yeah, 100%. We've been reactive for a long time.
Yeah.
So
that's
and the past year and a half, probably we've been changing that up, starting to like, okay, what's our next steps? What's growth? We just bought a shop for the business. So that was a big thing that's been on the bucket list instead of renting. And so we're working on renovating that and getting into it. But now it's like, okay, it opens your eyes really to like how much more potential you can have, and some cool stuff you can do. Like, hey, maybe we start stocking some materials and sell them out of here. And, the longevity of what it is.
Yeah. Now, a vision, back to your original point about a vision or knowing where you want to go is so important. Otherwise, it's kind of aimless, in which you'll burn time and energy and opportunity in that way. Like, that's true for anyone trying to make a go of it in not just business, but general life, Well, here, hang on. I got something here for you. I don't know if I gave you one of these before. I don't think I did.
Let's see. I'm excited.
But I give everyone on the podcast one of these.
Oh, dude.
One of these SynkedUP mugs. So
nice.
There you go.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
That'll go in the house. I eat my oatmeal out of these.
Do you?
Instant oatmeal.
Yeah.
Like just mugs.
Yeah.
And a little throwaway spoon.
Yeah.
Set in my center console every morning. So
there you go.
That's it. That's awesome.
These are hand-fired. My uncle makes them. They're hand-thrown pottery, or not hand-fired. They're hand-thrown in a wood-fired kiln.
Sweet.
So they're the old craftsman. It's the old art, the old world craftsmanship.
I love that, man.
So.
That's sick.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome, brother.
Yep.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for being on the podcast and having me here. And shall we go grab some dinner?
I'm so ready to eat.
Let's do it.